The concealer stick trembles in my arthritic fingers as I dab it over the purple fingerprints wrapped around my left wrist. 67 years old, and I'm sitting at my kitchen table at 7 in the morning, trying to cover up bruises my own daughter gave me. The irony isn't lost on me. I used to do this same routine 40 years ago, hiding the evidence of my late husband's temper. I thought those days were behind me when Robert died 5 years ago. The familiar scent of my vanilla candle can't quite mask the lingering smell of Emma's fury from this morning, that sharp, metallic odor of rage that seems to cling to the air after one of her episodes. My hands won't stop shaking as I blend the makeup into my wrinkled skin, watching the evidence disappear stroke by stroke. The bruises on my right forearm are harder to reach, twisted and angry where her nails dug in when she grabbed me by the back door. It had started so simply. I'd gone to Walmart yesterday to pick up the baby shower decorations she'd demanded, those specific pastel balloons and matching tablecloth she'd seen on Pinterest. But they were sold out of the exact shade of mint green she wanted. When I brought home the sage green ones instead, thinking they were close enough, Emma's face had contorted into something I barely recognized as my daughter. "Are you kidding me right now?" she'd screamed, her 8 months pregnant belly straining against her pajama top. "Today is my baby shower, Mom. My baby shower. And you couldn't even get this one simple thing right?" I tried to explain about the store being out of stock, suggested we could call around to other locations, but Emma was already spiraling. The pregnancy has made her mood so unpredictable, at least, that's what I keep telling myself. That's what the parenting blogs say, hormones can make expectant mothers emotional, irritable. But those blogs don't mention anything about their daughters slamming them against kitchen cabinets, fingers wrapped around delicate wrist bones like vices. The sound of her car pulling into my driveway makes my heart hammer against my ribs. I cap the concealer quickly, sliding it into the drawer beneath the checkered tablecloth, a tablecloth I'd made by hand when Emma was just a baby, back when I thought I was raising someone who would love me the way I loved her. Through the lace curtains my mother hung in these same windows 30 years ago, I watch Emma struggle out of her Honda Civic, one hand supporting her lower back. For a moment, she looks like any other expectant mother preparing for her celebration day, radiant, excited, maybe a little tired. It's only when she looks toward the house that I see it, that cold calculation in her eyes that's become so familiar, like she's already planning her next attack. I practice my smile in the hallway mirror, the same one that reflected my own mother's face when she lived here, and her mother's before that. 3 generations of women have prepared for difficult days in front of this glass, but I wonder if any of them ever had to smile while hiding evidence of their daughter's violence. The key turns in the lock, my spare key that I'd given her for emergencies, and that she'd never bothered to return, and I arrange my face into the expression I've perfected over these past few months. Pleasant. Calm. Unbruised. "Morning, sweetheart," I call out, my voice only wavering slightly. "Ready for your big day?" By noon, my backyard has been transformed into something from a magazine. The pastel balloons, sage green, not mint, but thankfully no one else seems to notice the difference, bobbed gently in the October breeze against the white fence I'd repainted just last week. I'd needed to cover the hole Emma had kicked in it during one of her rages about the baby's father not being involved enough. The fresh paint still smells faintly of primer when the wind shifts just right. 23 women fill my small space, perched on the folding chairs I'd borrowed from church and arranged around the 3 round tables I'd covered with my good linen. Mrs. Henderson from next door brought her famous deviled eggs. Emma's college friend Sarah flew in from Denver. Her co-workers from the dental office cluster around the gift table, cooing over tiny onesies and blanket sets. And in the center of it all sits my daughter, absolutely glowing. "Mom, come sit by me," Emma calls out, patting the chair beside her. Her voice carries that musical quality she reserves for public moments, the one that makes everyone comment on how sweet and close we are. When I approach, she reaches for my hand with both of hers, her touch gentle and warm. "Isn't she just the best?" she announces to the table. "I don't know what I'd do without my mom." The pressure of her fingers against my concealed bruises sends sharp spikes of pain up my arm, but her grip looks loving to everyone watching. I've become an expert at reading the difference between Emma's public touch and her private ones. This squeeze is precisely calculated to hurt while appearing affectionate. Her fingernails, painted a soft pink for the occasion, find the exact spots where she'd grabbed me this morning. "Oh, Emma," Mrs. Patterson gushes from across the table, "you're so lucky to have such a devoted mother. And Margaret, you must be over the moon about becoming a grandmother." "I am," I manage, forcing brightness into my voice. "We both are." Emma's grip tightens fractionally. "Mom's been amazing through this whole pregnancy. Always there when I need her, never complaining, always putting my needs first." Her thumb traces across my knuckles, pressing into the tender bruise hidden beneath my foundation. That's just the kind of mother she is. So selfless. The word selfless carries a weight that only I can hear. It's her code for compliant, for quiet, for willing to take whatever I dish out without fighting back. The other women nod approvingly, seeing a devoted daughter praising her mother's sacrifice. They don't see the way Emma's index finger finds the precise spot where her nail broke my skin this morning. Sarah, Emma's college roommate, leans forward with tears in her eyes. "This baby is going to be so loved. You can just see how close you two are. Some mother-daughter relationships get strained when grandchildren come along, but you guys have something special." Emma releases my hand to dab at her own eyes, playing up the emotion. "We've always been close," she says, and I notice how she avoids saying we've always been loving. "Mom taught me everything I know about family, about putting the people you love first." I excuse myself to check on the cake in the kitchen, my hand throbbing as feeling returns to my fingers. In the safety of the empty room, I lean against the counter and close my eyes, listening to the laughter filtering through the screen door. This is what I'd dreamed of, a baby shower for my daughter, surrounded by friends and family, celebrating new life. I just never imagined I'd be hiding bruises while living it. The kitchen has always been my sanctuary. Even when Robert was at his worst, this room with its yellow walls and mismatched tea towels felt safe, maybe because it was where I fed people, where I created comfort. Now, as I arrange finger sandwiches on my mother's good china, I can almost pretend this is just a normal celebration for a normal daughter. The screen door creaks as Dorothy Miller slips inside, carrying her empty lemonade pitcher. At 71, Dorothy moves with the careful precision of someone who's learned to navigate a world that wasn't built for aging bodies, but her mind is sharp as ever. She's lived next door for 15 years, ever since her husband passed, and we've shared countless cups of coffee across our adjoining fence. "Maggie," she says softly, setting the pitcher on the counter, "you seem exhausted lately. Are you feeling all right?" I turn to face her while arranging the sandwiches, keeping my movements casual. "Oh, you know how it is. Getting ready for a grandchild is more work than I expected at my age." But Dorothy's watching me too closely, those pale blue eyes taking in details I wish she wouldn't notice. "You've gotten so thin," she continues, stepping closer. "And you haven't been to our Tuesday morning walks in weeks. Emma said you were under the weather, but..." The crystal pitcher slips from my hands before I can catch it, shattering against the linoleum floor in an explosion of glass and sound that makes me jump back with a sharp gasp. My reaction is too big, too startled, and I know Dorothy sees it. Normal people don't flinch that dramatically at breaking glass unless they've learned to associate unexpected sounds with danger. "Oh." I laugh, but it comes out shaky and forced. "Butterfingers. I'm so sorry, Dorothy. That was your good pitcher." I'm already kneeling, gathering the larger pieces with trembling hands, when Emma appears in the doorway. The temperature in the room seems to drop 10 degrees as she takes in the scene, me on the floor, Dorothy's concerned expression, the evidence of my nervous breakdown scattered around us. "Mom," Emma says, her voice carrying just the right note of fond exasperation for Dorothy's benefit, "what did you do now?" She moves to help me up, her hand closing around my upper arm exactly where she'd squeezed this morning. To Dorothy, it looks like a daughter helping her clumsy mother. To me, it's a reminder of exactly how powerless I am in my own home. "Your poor mother," Dorothy says, and I can hear the genuine worry in her voice. "She's been so jumpy lately." Emma's fingers press deeper into my bruised arm as she steadies me. "She's just excited about the baby." "Aren't you, Mom?" Sometimes excitement makes us a little scattered. The word "scattered" is delivered with a slight emphasis that only I catch. It's Emma's way of undermining my credibility, planting seeds that I'm becoming confused, unreliable. If I ever tried to tell someone what's really happening, who would believe the word of a scattered old woman against her sweet, pregnant daughter? "Let me get the broom," I mumble, but Emma's grip tightens. "I'll get it," she says firmly. "You should get back to your guests. Everyone's asking where the hostess went." As she releases my arm, her fingernails drag across the bruised skin just enough to make me wince. Dorothy's looking between us with growing concern, but Emma's already playing her part again, the caring daughter taking charge of her overwhelmed mother. "Really, Mrs. Miller," Emma says to Dorothy while fetching the broom from the closet, "she's been like this all week. I keep telling her to slow down, but you know how she is about entertaining. She wants everything perfect for the baby." Dorothy nods, but her eyes keep returning to my face. "Well," she says carefully, "if you need any help, Margaret, you just call me. Day or night." The words carry weight beyond their surface meaning, and for a moment, I want desperately to tell her everything. But Emma's sweeping around my feet now, each stroke of the broom deliberately close to my ankles, a subtle reminder of how easy it would be to make me fall. "That's so sweet of you," Emma says before I can respond, "but we're managing just fine. Aren't we, Mom?" I nod because I have to, because Dorothy doesn't need to be pulled into this nightmare, because I still hold on to some foolish hope that Emma will change once the baby comes. But as Dorothy heads back outside, casting one last worried glance over her shoulder, I catch my reflection in the oven door. The woman staring back at me looks haunted, diminished, like someone who's forgotten how to take up space in her own life. That's when I realize Dorothy isn't the only one who can see I'm disappearing. The question is whether anyone will care enough to help me figure out why. The living room fills with the rustle of tissue paper and delighted exclamations as Emma begins opening gifts. She's positioned herself on the cream-colored sofa that's been in this room since I bought it 20 years ago, surrounded by pastel packages like a princess holding court. The afternoon light streams through the shears I washed specifically for today, casting everything in a golden glow that makes the scene feel almost magical. "Oh my goodness," Emma breathes as she unwraps a tiny yellow sleeper covered in ducks. "This is absolutely precious." She holds it up for everyone to see, and I watch her face transform with genuine maternal tenderness. For a moment, she looks exactly like the daughter I used to know, the little girl who would bandage her doll's imaginary injuries and tuck them in with elaborate bedtime stories. "Bring it here, Mom," she calls, patting the cushion beside her. "Sit with me while I open these. I want you to see everything." I settle next to her carefully, hyper-aware of the various tender spots hidden beneath my long-sleeved cardigan. Emma immediately wraps her left arm around my shoulders, pulling me close in what looks like a spontaneous gesture of affection. The crowd coos appreciatively at the display of mother-daughter closeness. But Emma's embrace is a masterclass in hidden cruelty. Her fingers find the exact spot on my shoulder where she'd shoved me against the kitchen counter this morning, pressing with enough pressure to make my breath catch. To everyone watching, she's simply holding her mother close during an emotional moment. "Isn't this just perfect?" Sarah says from her chair across the room, snapping photos with her phone. "You two look so happy together." Emma's grip tightens fractionally as she speaks, her voice thick with performed emotion. "I just hope I can be half the mother to this baby that my mom was to me." She pauses, looking directly at me with an expression that the room reads as love but I recognize as a warning. She taught me everything about sacrifice, about putting family first no matter what it costs you personally. The emphasis on, no matter what it costs, sends a chill down my spine. She's not just performing for the crowd, she's sending me a message about the future, about what she expects from me once the baby arrives. Tell them about the nursery rhymes, Emma continues, her thumb now tracing circles against my shoulder blade in exactly the spot that's most tender. Mom used to sing me to sleep every night with the most beautiful lullabies. I still remember every word. What I remember is singing to a colicky baby who screamed for hours, walking the floors of this same house at 2 in the morning while my husband slept soundly down the hall. I remember the exhaustion, the postpartum depression I was too ashamed to admit to anyone, the way Emma's constant crying made me feel like I was failing at the one thing women were supposed to be naturally good at. But that's not the story Emma wants told today. She was such a good baby, I hear myself saying, the lie slipping out automatically. Never any trouble at all. Emma's fingers dig deeper into my shoulder as she reaches for another gift with her free hand. That's because I had the best role model, she says, her voice dropping to a whisper that only I can hear. A mother who always knew exactly how to keep me in line. The package contains a mobile with tiny elephants that plays Brahms' lullaby when you wind the key. As the delicate melody fills the room, Emma leans her head against my shoulder in a gesture that looks tender but allows her to whisper directly into my ear. "You're going to help me with this baby," she murmurs, her words barely audible beneath the music and conversation. "Just like the perfect grandmother you're going to be. Quiet, helpful, and grateful for whatever role I allow you to have." Her tone is conversational, almost loving, but the threat is unmistakable. She's already planning how to control me once the baby arrives, how to use my love for my grandchild as another weapon in her arsenal. I think about the nursery we've prepared in Emma's apartment, the same apartment she's been evicted from twice in the past year for not paying rent. I think about the job she was fired from for showing up late and starting fights with coworkers. I think about all the times she's promised to change, to get her life together, and how this baby was supposed to be her fresh start. But as she opens another gift, a book about the importance of extended family and child rearing, I realize with growing horror that Emma doesn't see this baby as a chance to become better. She sees it as a way to have even more control, more leverage, more opportunities to make the people around her prove their love through submission. The music box elephant mobile keeps playing its innocent lullaby while my daughter holds me close, smiling radiantly at her guests, planning a future where my grandchild becomes another pawn in whatever game she's been playing with my life. And the most terrifying part is that everyone in this room thinks we're the picture of maternal bliss. The last guest leaves at 4:30, and the silence that follows feels like the moment before a storm breaks. I'm stacking plates in the kitchen sink when I hear Emma's footsteps behind me, heavier now, more deliberate than the light steps she used while performing for her audience. The cheerful mask she's worn all day is already slipping away like makeup washed down a drain. "Well, that was a disaster," she announces, her voice flat and cold in a way that makes my shoulders tense automatically. I turn carefully, keeping my hands busy with the dishes. "I thought it went wonderfully, sweetheart. Everyone seemed to have such a nice time, and you got so many beautiful gifts. Are you seriously going to pretend you didn't embarrass me today?" Emma's voice rises sharply, and I can smell that familiar scent of her anger, something metallic and bitter that seems to change the very air in the room. "That whole thing with Mrs. Miller and the broken pitcher. The way you kept fidgeting and looking nervous. Everyone could see something was wrong with you." My hands still in the soapy water. The dishes from my mother's wedding set feel fragile between my fingers, and I'm suddenly terrified I'll break something else, give Emma another reason to escalate. "I was just tired, honey. It's been a long day." "Don't." The word cracks like a whip. "Don't you dare make excuses. You made me look bad in front of my friends, in front of people I have to see again. Do you have any idea how that felt?" She's pacing now behind me, and I can track her movement by the creaking of the old floorboards Robert never got around to fixing. The sound brings back memories of other angry footsteps in this kitchen, other voices raised in accusation. But those belong to a man I chose to marry. This is my daughter, the baby I carried for 9 months, the toddler I rocked through nightmares, the child I sacrificed everything to protect. Emma, please, I try, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to upset you. Maybe we could talk about this tomorrow when you've had some rest. The suggestion hangs in the air for exactly 3 seconds before Emma explodes. Rest? Rest? She spins toward me, her face contorted with a rage that seems too big for her pregnant body to contain. I don't get to rest, Mom. I'm having a baby in 3 weeks, the father wants nothing to do with us, I lost my job last month, and my own mother can't even hold it together for one afternoon without making me look like I come from some kind of dysfunctional family. The confession about her job hits me like a physical blow. She's been leaving for work every morning, coming home with stories about difficult patients and demanding doctors. I've been giving her gas money, lunch money, even covering her car insurance because she said the dental office was slow paying. You lost your job? I ask, and immediately know it's the wrong question. Emma's hand shoots out and shoves me hard against the kitchen counter, the edge digging into my lower back. Her pregnant belly brushes against me as she leans in close, her face inches from mine. That's what you focus on. Not that I'm stressed and scared and need support, but that I didn't tell you about some stupid job. Her breath is hot against my cheek, and I can see flecks of spittle at the corners of her mouth. You're so selfish, Mom. Everything is always about what affects you, isn't it? The irony of being called selfish while being shoved around my own kitchen would be laughable if it weren't so terrifying. I try to step sideways, to create some space between us, but Emma follows my movement. I think maybe counseling could help us, I say desperately, the words tumbling out before I can stop them. We could go together, work on communication before the baby comes. I want to be a good grandmother, Emma. I want us to be a family. Her laugh is sharp and ugly. Counseling? You think there's something wrong with us that needs fixing? She shoves me again, harder this time, and something in my back pops. The only thing wrong here is you, Mom. You and your weakness and your constant need to be the victim. I slide down the cabinet door to the floor, my legs suddenly unable to support me. From this angle, looking up at my daughter's furious face, I can see myself reflected in the oven door again, a crumpled old woman who's lost control of her own life. You know what the real problem is? Emma continues, her voice dropping to that dangerous whisper I've learned to fear more than her screaming. You ruined my childhood with exactly this kind of pathetic behavior. Always crying, always acting like the world was against you, always making me feel like I had to take care of your feelings instead of being a normal kid. The words cut deeper than any physical blow because they contain just enough truth to make me doubt everything. I wasn't a perfect mother. I was depressed after Robert died, overwhelmed by single parenthood, probably too dependent on Emma's mature for her age helpfulness. But I never hit her. I never made her afraid to come home. I never used her love against her as a weapon. As I sit on my kitchen floor, looking up at the daughter I'd die for, I realize with crystal clarity that bringing a baby into this environment would be the worst kind of disaster. That innocent child doesn't deserve to grow up walking on eggshells, learning to read the warning signs in his mother's voice, developing the hypervigilance that's become my constant companion. But I also realize that if I want to protect my grandchild, I'm going to have to find a way to protect myself first. 3 days later, Emma announces she's moving in, temporarily, to prepare for the baby's arrival. She frames it as a practical decision, her apartment lease is up, she needs help in her final weeks of pregnancy, and wouldn't it be wonderful for us to bond before the baby comes? The way she presents it to anyone who'll listen, I'm the lucky grandmother getting extra time with my daughter before becoming a grandma. The reality is something entirely different. By the end of the first week, Emma has systematically rearranged my life to suit her needs. She's moved into my bedroom, the one I've slept in for 30 years, claiming the upstairs is too hard for her to navigate in her condition. I've been relegated to the pull-out couch in what used to be my sewing room, surrounded by boxes of her belongings that somehow multiply every day. Mom, can you get that? Emma calls from the living room when the phone rings. It's Tuesday morning, and I can hear the television playing some talk show at a volume that would have gotten complaints from the neighbors if Dorothy were still speaking to me. But Dorothy isn't speaking to me because Emma has made sure of that. I pick up the kitchen extension, and Dorothy's familiar voice crackles through the old receiver. Margaret? I've been trying to reach you for days. Are you all right? I haven't seen you on your morning walks, and when I knocked yesterday, Emma said you were sleeping. I glance toward the living room, where Emma is pretending to watch TV while obviously listening to every word. Oh, I'm fine, Dorothy. Just tired with all the baby preparations, you know how it is. Well, I was thinking we could have coffee this afternoon. I made that lemon cake you like, and... Actually, Emma calls out loudly enough for Dorothy to hear through the phone, Mom's not feeling well today. The doctor said she needs to take it easy. All this excitement about the baby has been overwhelming for someone her age. The words sting because they're designed to. Emma's been telling everyone who'll listen that I'm overwhelmed, confused, not quite myself lately. She's painting a picture of an elderly woman declining mentally, someone whose version of events can't be trusted. Oh, Dorothy says, and I can hear the uncertainty creeping into her voice. Well, if she's not feeling well. I'll tell her you called, Emma continues cheerfully. But she really needs her rest right now. I'm sure you understand. I want to scream into the phone that I'm fine, that I'm standing right here, that Emma is lying. Instead, I listen to Dorothy say goodbye and hang up, another connection to the outside world severed by my daughter's careful manipulation. The pattern repeats throughout the week. When Mrs. Patterson from church calls about the upcoming bake sale, Emma explains that I'm too forgetful lately to handle the responsibility. When my doctor's office calls to confirm my annual checkup, Emma reschedules it for a time when she can drive me. Mom's been having some dizzy spells, she explains to the receptionist while I stand frozen in my own kitchen. My world shrinks to the walls of this house, and within these walls, Emma's moods dictate everything. She's redecorated my living room with her things, claiming she needs the space to be calming for the baby. My photo albums, 40 years of memories, pictures of Emma's childhood, family gatherings, holidays, disappear one afternoon while I'm grocery shopping. Where are my albums? I ask when I discover them missing from the bookshelf. Emma looks up from the couch where she's painting her nails a deep red that somehow looks aggressive. Oh, those old things. They were so dusty and faded. I threw them away. The words hit me like a physical blow. You threw them away. Emma, those had pictures of your whole childhood, your father's funeral, your graduation. Fake memories, she says dismissively, not even pausing in her manicure. Just a bunch of pictures of you pretending to be a good mother. I don't need that kind of negativity around my baby. I sink into the chair across from her, my own chair in my own living room, and try to process the casual cruelty of erasing decades of my life. Those albums contain the only proof I had that there were good times, that I wasn't the terrible mother Emma now claims I was. Besides, Emma continues, blowing on her wet nails, you need to stop living in the past and focus on being useful in the present. This baby is going to need a grandmother who can actually contribute something instead of just sitting around feeling sorry for herself. That night, lying on the uncomfortable pull-out couch in what used to be my sanctuary, I stare at the ceiling and listen to Emma moving around in my bedroom above. She's on the phone with someone, her voice carrying through the thin floors of this old house. Yeah, she's definitely getting worse, I hear her say. Forgetting things, getting confused, that whole incident at the baby shower with the broken glass. I'm worried about leaving her alone with the baby, honestly. She might not be safe. My blood turns to ice as I realize what she's doing. Emma isn't just isolating me for control, she's building a case. creating a narrative where I'm an unreliable, possibly dangerous elderly woman who can't be trusted with her grandchild. And the most terrifying part is that after weeks of her systematic dismantling of my confidence, I'm starting to wonder if she might be right. The manila folder is hidden behind my jewelry box in the bedroom closet, the closet that used to be mine before Emma claimed it along with everything else in my life. Inside the folder are copies of my birth certificate, social security card, the deed to this house, and my will. Emma doesn't know about this hiding spot yet, but I have a feeling it's only a matter of time. I discovered her research on Thursday morning while she was in the shower. Her laptop was open on the kitchen table, and I couldn't help but see the browser tabs: power of attorney for elderly parents, how to gain guardianship, managing finances for aging relatives. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical blow she'd ever landed. My daughter, the baby I nursed through colic, the toddler I taught to read, the child I worked double shifts to send to college, is researching how to steal my independence. Now it's Saturday morning, and Emma's on the phone again. These calls have become more frequent, always conducted in hushed tones that carry just enough for me to catch fragments. This time I'm washing dishes in the kitchen while she paces the living room, her voice drifting through the doorway. "No, I know it's complicated," she's saying, "but she's really deteriorating. Yesterday she left the stove on for 3 hours. Could have burned the whole house down." The lie slides off her tongue so easily it takes my breath away. I never left the stove on. I barely cook anymore since Emma moved in and started criticizing everything I make: too salty, too bland, not the right texture for someone with digestive issues like hers. The baby's due in 2 weeks, Emma continues, and I can't have her around unsupervised. She's already shown she can't handle stress. You should have seen her at the baby shower, completely falling apart in front of everyone. I grip the edge of the sink until my knuckles turn white. Through the window above the faucet, I can see Dorothy's house next door. She's in her garden, tending to the late fall mums we planted together last month. Before Emma's campaign to isolate me began, Dorothy and I would spend Saturday mornings working side by side, sharing coffee and gossip over the fence line. Now Dorothy thinks I'm losing my mind. Well, once I have power of attorney, we can handle the old woman however we need to. Emma's voice carries more clearly now. She's got this house, her retirement savings, plus that life insurance policy from when my dad died. It's not a fortune, but it'll be enough to get us started. The casual way she refers to me as the old woman is almost as shocking as hearing her reduce my life to a dollar amount. I think about the life insurance money she's talking about, Robert's policy that I've been saving for Emma's future, for her children's college funds, for emergencies. Money I've lived frugally to preserve because I wanted to leave her something substantial. Trust me, Emma laughs, and the sound is cold and calculating. Once the baby comes, she'll be so desperate to be involved that she'll sign anything I put in front of her. Grandmothers always do. The phone call ends, and I hear Emma's footsteps approaching the kitchen. I turn back to the dishes, trying to arrange my face into something neutral, but my hands are shaking so badly that the plate I'm holding slips into the sink with a loud clatter. Jesus, Mom, what's wrong with you now? Emma's voice carries that familiar edge of irritation. Sorry, I mumble, fishing the plate out of the soapy water. Just slipped. Emma moves closer, and I can smell her perfume, something sharp and expensive that she started wearing after moving in here. You know, maybe you should see a neurologist. All this clumsiness and forgetfulness isn't normal for someone your age. The suggestion sounds caring to anyone who might be listening, but I can hear the threat underneath. She's already planning my next doctor's appointment, another opportunity to build her case that I'm incompetent. I'm fine, Emma. Just tired. No, you're not fine. Her voice takes on that patient tone people use with children and invalids. You're getting older, Mom, and sometimes older people need help making decisions. There's no shame in that. She reaches out and takes the plate from my hands, her fingers deliberately pressing into the bruises on my wrists that have faded from purple to yellow-green. I've been thinking that after the baby comes, we should look into some kind of assisted living situation for you. Somewhere with people trained to handle your issues. The words hit me like ice water. Assisted living. She's planning to have me declared incompetent and then warehouse me somewhere while she takes over my house, my money, my life. This is my home, I say quietly, but even to my own ears, my voice sounds weak and uncertain. Well, technically, if you're not capable of managing your affairs. Emma lets the sentence hang in the air like a threat. I'm just trying to look out for what's best for everyone. Including the baby. That night, I lie awake on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling and listening to Emma move around upstairs. Every creak of the floorboard sounds like another piece of my life being dismantled. I think about my grandson, still unnamed, still safe in his mother's womb, and wonder what kind of world he's about to enter. I think about the research Emma's been doing, the phone calls about managing the old woman, the systematic isolation from everyone who might help me. But mostly, I think about the one thing that terrifies me more than losing my house or my money or my independence. I think about what happens to that innocent baby when Emma realizes that motherhood won't fix whatever's broken inside her, when she discovers that babies cry and demand attention and can't be controlled the way she's learned to control me. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I realize that protecting myself and protecting my grandchild might be the same thing. But lying here in the dark, feeling more alone than I've ever felt in my life, I have no idea how to save either of us. The contractions start at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, 3 weeks before Emma's due date. I wake up to her screaming my name from upstairs, her voice pitched with pain and panic that cuts through the old house like a siren. Mom. Mom. Something's wrong. I'm on my feet before I'm fully awake, muscle memory from years of motherhood propelling me up the stairs faster than my 67-year-old knees should allow. I find Emma doubled over beside my old bed, one hand gripping the nightstand, the other pressed against her enormous belly. It's too early, she gasps, and for a moment she looks exactly like the scared little girl who used to crawl into this same bed during thunderstorms. The baby's not supposed to come yet. Okay, sweetheart, let's get you to the hospital, I say, automatically shifting into crisis mode. Can you walk? Should I call an ambulance? No ambulance, Emma snaps, even through her pain. I'm not riding in some dirty truck with strangers. You can drive me. The 20-minute trip to the hospital becomes a nightmare of Emma's escalating panic and blame. Every red light, every turn, every bump in the road becomes my fault. By the time we reach the emergency entrance, she's worked herself into a state that has nothing to do with labor pains and everything to do with her need to make someone else responsible for her fear. This is all your fault, she hisses as I help her out of the car. All your negative energy around the house, all your stress and depression. You cursed this baby with your bad attitude. The accusation is so absurd it would be laughable if it weren't coming from my daughter in active labor. But Emma's beyond reason now, and when a contraction hits just as we reach the sliding glass doors, she grabs my arm with a grip that will leave new bruises and pinches the skin until I gasp. You did this, she whispers through gritted teeth. If something happens to my baby because of you. The threat hangs unfinished in the antiseptic air of the hospital entrance. The next 6 hours blur together in a kaleidoscope of medical personnel, monitoring equipment, and Emma's performance for each new audience. With the nurses, she's brave and grateful, making jokes about first-time mom nerves. With the doctor, she's thoughtful and prepared, asking informed questions about the early labor. But with me, whenever we're alone, she's venomous. Stop hovering, she snaps when I try to adjust her pillow. You're making me claustrophobic. Don't touch me, she hisses when I attempt to hold her hand during a contraction. Your hands are cold and clammy. It's disgusting. The worst moment comes when I excuse myself to use the restroom. I'm washing my hands in the small bathroom attached to Emma's labor room when I hear voices through the thin door. Is your mother okay? It's Dr. Martinez, the obstetrician who's been taking care of Emma throughout her pregnancy. She seems very anxious. Oh, she's always been high-strung. Emma's voice carries that tone I've learned to recognize, the one that sounds loving but plants seeds of doubt. Honestly, I'm worried about her being around the baby. She's been so scattered lately, forgetting things, getting confused. Just this morning she left the front door wide open when we left for the hospital. Another lie, delivered so smoothly that even I almost question my own memory. I definitely locked the front door. I checked it twice. Well, new grandmothers can get overwhelmed, Dr. Martinez says diplomatically. Maybe we can arrange for some support services after you go home. That's probably a good idea, Emma agrees. I love her, but I need to put the baby's safety first. I stand in that tiny bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror above the sink, and watch another piece of my credibility crumble. By the time I return to the room, Dr. Martinez is making notes in Emma's chart, and my daughter is smiling serenely from her hospital bed. At 8:47 a.m., Thomas Robert Miller, named after his grandfather, enters the world screaming and perfect. 6 pounds, 2 ounces of pure miracle, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that seem to look right through you. When they place him in Emma's arms, she transforms yet again, this time into someone I almost recognize from her own babyhood. "Hi, little man," she whispers, her voice soft with wonder. "Mommy's here. Mommy's going to take such good care of you." For a moment, watching her cradle her son with genuine tenderness, I allow myself to hope that this might be the thing that changes her. That becoming a mother might awaken whatever part of her heart has been sleeping for so long. Then the nurse asks if I'd like to hold my grandson. "Actually," Emma says, not looking up from the baby, "I'd prefer to keep him with me for now. Skin-to-skin contact is so important in the first hours, and my mother has been feeling under the weather lately. I wouldn't want to risk exposing him to anything." The lie is delivered so smoothly, with such apparent concern for the baby's welfare, that the nurse simply nods and moves on to other tasks. But the message to me is crystal clear: even here, even now, Emma is going to control every aspect of my relationship with my grandchild. Later that afternoon, when Emma finally allows me to hold Thomas, she hovers over us like a guard dog. Every movement I make is scrutinized, every sound I make is criticized. "Support his head more," she instructs. "No, not like that. You're holding him too tight. Don't talk so loud, you'll overstimulate him." When Thomas starts to fuss, normal baby behavior that has nothing to do with my handling, Emma immediately swoops in to reclaim him. "See? He doesn't like being held by other people. He knows his mommy's touch." But it's what happens in the parking lot that night that finally breaks something inside me. We're loading into my car for the drive home, Emma insisting she's well enough to leave despite the doctor's recommendation to stay another night, when she stumbles slightly on the curb. Without thinking, I reach out to steady her, my hand closing gently around her elbow. Emma's reaction is swift and vicious. She spins around and slaps me across the face with enough force to make my ears ring. "Don't grab me," she shouts, loud enough for other families leaving the hospital to turn and stare. "I told you I'm fine." God, Mom, you're so clingy and controlling. The slap itself isn't the worst part. It's the fact that she hit me while I was trying to help her, while she was holding my newborn grandson, in front of witnesses who now see exactly what she wanted them to see, an overly anxious elderly woman upsetting a new mother. As I stand there in that hospital parking lot, my cheeks stinging and my heart breaking, holding the car door open for the daughter who just hit me and the grandson I already love more than my own life, I realize that Emma was never going to change. If anything, having a baby has just given her a more powerful weapon to use against me. And that innocent child sleeping in her arms is going to grow up learning that love looks like control, that family means fear, that the people who claim to care about you the most are the ones most likely to hurt you. Unless someone finds the courage to break the cycle. The question is whether that someone can possibly be me. 2 weeks after bringing Thomas home, I'm learning that newborns don't sleep as much as the parenting books claim. It's 3 in the morning, and I'm walking the kitchen floor with my grandson against my shoulder, his tiny fists beating against my collarbone as he wails with the particular intensity that only babies can achieve. Emma is sleeping upstairs, has been sleeping for the past 4 hours while I've handled every feeding, every diaper change, every moment of Thomas's fussiness. She claims the baby prefers me at night, that my grandmother's touch is more soothing than hers. What she really means is that she's discovered motherhood is harder work than she expected, and she has a convenient live-in caregiver to dump the responsibility on. "Shoo, little man," I whisper against Thomas's downy head, breathing in that sweet baby smell that somehow makes all the exhaustion worthwhile. "Grandma's got you. You're safe." The irony of that promise isn't lost on me. Safe. In a house where his mother's rage can explode without warning, where the person who loves him most is too broken to protect either of them effectively. Thomas's crying escalates, that red-faced, full-body protest that means he's moved beyond tired into complete meltdown territory. I try the swaying motion that usually calms him, humming the same lullaby I sang to Emma 30 years ago, but nothing seems to help. That's when Emma appears in the kitchen doorway. Her hair is wild from sleep, her oversized t-shirt hanging off one shoulder, and her face carries that particular combination of exhaustion and fury that's become her default expression since bringing Thomas home. But it's her eyes that make my blood run cold, that flat, dangerous look I've learned to fear more than her screaming. "What did you do to him?" she demands, her voice cutting through Thomas's cries like glass. "Nothing, sweetheart. He's just fussy. Sometimes babies. Give him to me." Emma's command is sharp and final, her arms already reaching for Thomas before I can respond. I should hand him over. I should apologize for not being able to calm him, should retreat to my pull-out bed in the sewing room and let Emma handle her own child. But something in her posture, the way her hands are already clenched into fists, makes me hesitate. "Maybe if we try." Emma's hand shoots out and grabs my forearm, her fingernails digging into the skin just above my wrist. "I said give him to me. Now." The sudden violence makes me stumble backward, and in that moment of lost balance, Emma snatches Thomas from my arms with a roughness that makes him scream even louder. The sound seems to enrage her further, and I watch in horror as she shakes him, just slightly, just enough to make his little head wobble, while hissing, "Shut up, shut up, shut up. Emma, no." The words tear from my throat before I can stop them. "You can't shake a baby, it's dangerous." Her free hand connects with my cheek in a slap that echoes through the kitchen like a gunshot. The force of it sends me staggering into the counter, my hip connecting with the sharp edge hard enough to make me gasp. "Don't you dare tell me how to handle my own child," Emma snarls, but she stops shaking Thomas, holding him against her chest instead. "You think you know better than me? You, who couldn't even raise one kid without screwing her up completely." The accusation hits harder than the slap. Standing there in my own kitchen at 3 in the morning, my cheek burning and my grandson still crying in his mother's arms, I realize that Emma isn't just abusing me anymore. She's escalating toward the baby, and my attempts to intervene are only making her more dangerous. Thomas's cries finally begin to subside as Emma rocks him with mechanical precision, but her eyes never leave my face. "You're useless," she says conversationally, as if commenting on the weather. "Completely useless. I don't know why I ever thought you could help with this." The next morning, I'm applying foundation to the handprint-shaped bruise on my cheek when the doorbell rings. Emma's in the shower, and Thomas is napping in the bassinet she's set up in what used to be my living room, so I answer the door myself. Carol Morrison stands on my front porch with her medical bag and a warm smile that immediately makes me want to cry. She's the visiting nurse assigned to check on Thomas's progress, a stocky woman in her 50s with graying brown hair and eyes that seem to take in everything at once. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller," she says, and her voice carries the kind of professional kindness that makes you believe someone actually cares about your well-being. "How are we doing today?" "Fine," I say automatically, angling my face so the bruise is less visible. Emma's just getting ready. The baby's sleeping. But Carol's already looking past my careful positioning, her trained gaze taking in details I wish she wouldn't notice. That's quite a bruise, she observes quietly. Did you have a fall? The question hangs in the air between us, loaded with possibilities. I could lie, make up some story about clumsiness or accidents. I could protect Emma the way I've been protecting her for months, maybe years. Instead, I find myself looking into Carol's compassionate eyes and feeling something crack open inside my chest. I start, then stop, glancing nervously toward the stairs where I can hear the shower still running. Carol steps closer to the door, lowering her voice. Mrs. Miller, part of my job is to assess the safety of the environment for newborns. That includes making sure all the adults in the household are safe and healthy too. The kindness in her tone, the implication that my safety matters as much as Thomas's, nearly undoes me completely. When was the last time someone spoke to me like I was a person worth protecting? It's complicated, I whisper, and even that small admission feels like jumping off a cliff. Carol nods like she understands exactly what I mean. Most difficult situations are. But you know what's not complicated? A baby's need for a safe environment. And sometimes, protecting a child means protecting the adults who love them too. Before I can respond, Emma's voice calls down from upstairs, "Mom? Who's at the door?" "The nurse is here," I call back, my voice steadier than I feel. Carol touches my arm gently, and the contact is so different from Emma's grabbing and pinching that I almost flinch away from its gentleness. "I'm going to do my examination," she says quietly, "but I want you to know that I'm here for both of you, you and Thomas. Do you understand what I'm saying?" I nod, not trusting my voice, as Emma's footsteps start down the stairs. For the first time in months, I feel like someone might actually see what's happening in this house. Someone who might believe me if I found the courage to tell the truth. The question is whether I can find that courage before it's too late for both Thomas and me. Carol's second visit happens 3 days later, and this time she's not alone. I'm sitting in the kitchen with Thomas when I see the cars pull into my driveway, Carol's familiar Honda followed by an official-looking sedan that makes my stomach clench with a mixture of hope and terror. Emma's upstairs getting dressed, and I can hear her moving around with the particular energy that means she's preparing for a performance. She always knows when something important is happening, some sixth sense that alerts her to moments when her facade might be tested. The doorbell rings, and I hear Emma's footsteps on the stairs, quicker now, urgent. "I'll get it," she calls, but I'm already at the door, Thomas sleeping peacefully in my arms. Carol stands on my porch flanked by 2 other people, a serious-looking woman in a gray suit carrying a briefcase, and a police officer whose presence makes my mouth go dry. Behind them, I can see Mrs. Patterson from across the street peeking through her curtains, and I know this moment will be neighborhood gossip by evening. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller," Carol says, her voice carrying that same professional warmth but with an undertone of gravity that wasn't there before. "This is Janet Crawford from Adult Protective Services, and Officer Williams. We'd like to talk with you and Emma about Thomas's home environment." Emma appears beside me before I can respond, and I can actually feel the temperature drop as she takes in the scene. But when she speaks, her voice is perfectly modulated, concerned and cooperative. "Of course," she says, stepping slightly in front of me in a move that looks protective but effectively blocks me from the visitor's direct line of sight. "Is everything all right? Has something happened?" Janet Crawford speaks for the first time, her voice crisp and official. "We'd like to come in and ask you both some questions. It's part of our routine follow-up when concerns are raised about infant welfare." The word "concerns" hangs in the air like a bomb, and I feel Emma's entire body tense beside me. But she recovers quickly, her public mask sliding into place with practiced ease. "Concerns? I don't understand. Thomas is perfectly healthy." "This is about more than the baby's physical health," Officer Williams interjects, his eyes moving between Emma and me with the kind of assessment cops learn to make quickly. "We have some reports we need to follow up on." Emma's laugh is perfectly pitched, confused, slightly hurt, completely believable. "Reports? What kind of reports? From who?" But as she's speaking, her hand finds my lower back, fingers pressing into exactly the spot where she shoved me against the counter 2 nights ago. To anyone watching, it looks like a daughter seeking comfort from her mother. Only I can feel the warning in her touch, the promise of consequences if I say the wrong thing. "Mrs. Miller," Janet addresses me directly, "we'd like to speak with you privately first, if that's all right. Just to get your perspective on how things are going." "That's fine," Emma answers before I can speak, "but I hope you understand that my mother has been under a lot of stress lately. She's been having some memory issues, getting confused about things. I'd hate for you to get the wrong impression. There it is, the groundwork she's been laying for weeks, the narrative that paints me as unreliable." Carol's eyes sharpen at Emma's words, and I can see her making mental notes. "We'll take that into consideration," Janet says neutrally. "But we do need to hear from Mrs. Miller directly." They separate us, Janet and I sitting in the living room while Carol takes Emma into the kitchen. Officer Williams positions himself near the front door, a silent reminder that this isn't just a friendly visit. "Mrs. Miller," Janet begins, opening her briefcase and pulling out a folder, "we've received reports suggesting that you may be experiencing abuse in your home. I want you to know that anything you tell me will be kept confidential and used only to ensure everyone's safety." The directness of the question catches me off guard. After months of hiding, of making excuses, of protecting Emma even as she tears my life apart, someone is finally asking me outright if I'm being hurt. I start, then stop, glancing toward the kitchen where I can hear Emma's voice, sweet and reasonable, explaining something to Carol. "I know this is difficult," Janet continues gently. "But we also have some security footage from the hospital that shows Emma striking you in the parking lot. And Carol has documented injuries consistent with physical abuse." My hands start to shake. They have evidence. Real, undeniable proof of what Emma did to me. For so long, I've felt like I was going crazy, like maybe I was exaggerating or misremembering. But they saw it too. "She's my daughter," I whisper, and the words feel like a confession. "I understand that makes this especially painful," Janet says. "But being someone's parent doesn't give them the right to hurt you. And more importantly, we need to consider what's best for Thomas." At the mention of my grandson's name, something inside me breaks open. Thomas, sleeping peacefully in his bassinet just a few feet away, completely dependent on the adults around him to keep him safe. Thomas, who has already witnessed violence in his short life, who's learning that raised voices and fear are normal parts of family life. "She shook him," I say, the words tumbling out before I can stop them. "The other night when he was crying. Just a little, but I know you're not supposed to shake babies, and when I tried to stop her, she hit me." Janet's pen moves across her notepad, documenting my words with careful precision. "Has this happened before? The violence?" "Yes." The word comes out as barely a whisper, but once I've said it, the rest starts pouring out. Months of suppressed truth spilling into Janet's careful questions, the isolation, the financial manipulation, the systematic destruction of my credibility and independence. From the kitchen, I can hear Emma's voice rising slightly, that edge creeping in that always precedes an explosion. She must realize that her performance isn't working the way it usually does. "Mrs. Miller," Janet says when I finish talking, "we're going to need to remove Emma and Thomas from the home temporarily while we investigate these allegations. Can you tell me if you have somewhere safe to stay tonight?" The room seems to spin around me. "Remove them?" "But Thomas, he's just a baby. He needs to be in a safe environment," Janet says firmly. "And right now, we can't guarantee that this is one." That's when Emma's voice explodes from the kitchen, no longer sweet or reasonable. "You can't do this. That baby is mine. She's lying, she's a bitter old woman who can't stand that I don't need her anymore. The mask has finally slipped completely, and through the doorway, I can see Carol backing away as Emma advances on her, all pretense of maternal sweetness gone. Officer Williams is already moving toward the kitchen as Emma's voice reaches a shriek. She's the one who's dangerous. She's the one who shouldn't be around children. I'm a good mother, I'm a good mother. Janet touches my arm gently. Mrs. Miller, I need you to pack a bag. Officer Williams is going to escort you to a safe location while we sort this out. As the chaos erupts around me, Emma screaming, Thomas waking and beginning to cry, the sound of official voices trying to de-escalate the situation, I realize that the moment I've been dreading and hoping for in equal measure has finally arrived. Someone finally sees the truth. Someone finally believes me. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm not facing this nightmare alone. 6 months later, I'm sitting in family court Judge Maria Santos's chambers, wearing the navy blue dress I bought specifically for this occasion, the first new clothes I've purchased for myself in over a year. My hands aren't shaking anymore, which still surprises me sometimes. The constant tremor that became my normal has gradually faded as the fear has lessened, though I still catch myself checking over my shoulder more often than I'd like. Thomas is in my lap, and at 8 months old, he's discovered the joy of grabbing everything within reach. Right now, he's fascinated by the silver bracelet Carol gave me for my birthday last month, a simple chain with a small charm that reads, Strength. He chortles and babbles as he examines it, completely unaware that his future is being decided in this wood-paneled room that smells of law books and coffee. Mrs. Miller, Judge Santos says, reviewing the papers spread across her desk, the court has reviewed all the documentation provided by Adult Protective Services, the psychological evaluations, and the recommendations from both the child welfare advocates and your grandson's pediatrician. Across the room, Emma sits with her court-appointed attorney, looking nothing like the woman who terrorized me for so many months. The mandatory anger management classes and supervised therapy have given her new vocabulary to describe her behavior, new ways to frame her actions as symptoms rather than choices. She's lost weight, cut her hair, and adopted a subdued demeanor that her lawyer probably coached her to display. But I've learned to look past Emma's performances. And right now, even as she sits quietly with her hands folded, I can see the rage simmering just beneath the surface. The way her jaw clenches when Thomas laughs. The way her fingers tap against her leg in that pattern I recognize as barely controlled fury. Emma, Judge Santos continues, you've completed the court-mandated programs, and your therapist reports that you've made significant progress in understanding the patterns of behavior that led to this situation. Emma nods earnestly, and when she speaks, her voice carries that carefully modulated tone I remember from her best performances. Your Honor, I take full responsibility for my mistakes. The pregnancy hormones and stress of becoming a single mother don't excuse my behavior, but they help explain why I acted in ways that were completely out of character for me. The words are perfectly crafted, hitting all the right notes of accountability without actually accepting blame. She's learned the language of therapy speak, but I can hear the hollowness underneath it. Judge Santos turns to me next. Mrs. Miller, you've had primary care of Thomas for the past 6 months. How would you describe his adjustment and your ability to meet his needs? I look down at my grandson, who's now trying to fit my entire bracelet in his mouth, and feel that familiar surge of fierce protectiveness that's become the strongest emotion in my daily life. He's thriving, I say, and my voice is steadier than it's been in years. He's healthy, happy, meeting all his developmental milestones. He sleeps through the night now, loves his playtime at the community center, and has formed secure attachments with the people who care for him regularly. What I don't say, because it doesn't need to be said in this formal setting, is how Thomas has transformed my life as much as I've hopefully protected his. How his laughter has filled the silence in my house that used to echo with fear. How teaching him to clap and wave and say, "ba-ba-ba," has reminded me that I'm capable of nurturing without walking on eggshells. The court is also impressed with the support system you've established, Judge Santos notes, glancing at her papers. Mrs. Morrison speaks very highly of your parenting skills and your commitment to Thomas's well-being. Carol, sitting in the gallery behind me, had become more than just a visiting nurse. She's been my advocate through this entire process, helping me navigate the legal system, connecting me with resources, and most importantly, reminding me that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. Dorothy is here too, along with Mrs. Patterson and 3 other neighbors who submitted character references on my behalf. The isolation Emma worked so hard to create has been replaced by a community of people who understand that protecting Thomas means protecting me too. However, Judge Santos continues, the court is also mindful that maintaining family connections, when safe and appropriate, is in the child's best interest. Emma, you will continue to have supervised visitation twice a week, with the possibility of increased contact as you demonstrate consistent emotional regulation and parenting skills. Emma's mask slips slightly at the word supervised, her lips pressing into a thin line that I know means she's furious about being monitored. But she recovers quickly, nodding as if this arrangement is exactly what she wanted. Mrs. Miller, the court is awarding you temporary guardianship of Thomas, with a review scheduled in 1 year. During this time, you'll continue to work with the Family Services Coordinator to ensure Thomas's needs are being met and that all parties are making progress toward the ultimate goal of family reunification, if and when it becomes safe and appropriate. The gavel comes down with a sound that feels like freedom. That evening, I'm in my backyard, truly mine again now that the legal protections are in place, watching Thomas practice pulling himself up to standing while holding onto the new safety fence I had installed around the small deck. The October air carries the smell of burning leaves from somewhere down the street, and the late afternoon light makes everything look golden and possible. Dorothy comes through the gate carrying 2 cups of coffee and settles into the chair beside mine. How does it feel? She asks, watching Thomas grab fistfuls of grass with the serious concentration that only babies bring to their work. Terrifying, I admit, then laugh at my own honesty. But good terrifying. Like the kind of scared you get when you're about to do something important and difficult and right. We sit in comfortable silence for a while, 2 women who've learned that friendship sometimes means sitting witness to each other's hardest moments. Dorothy was the one who called Adult Protective Services after seeing too many signs she couldn't ignore anymore. She was the one who testified about the changes she'd observed in me, the isolation, the fear. You know, Dorothy says eventually, I keep thinking about that morning when you broke the pitcher in your kitchen. How you jumped like the sound was going to hurt you. I remember that morning too, the way my body had reacted before my mind could catch up, the way I tried to make myself smaller in my own space. I don't do that anymore, I realize, saying it out loud for the first time. Loud noises don't make me want to disappear. Thomas chooses that moment to let out a particularly joyful shriek as he successfully pulls himself to standing, and both Dorothy and I laugh at the timing. As we watch him beam with pride at his accomplishment, I think about the future I'm building for both of us. The therapy appointments that are helping me understand how I ended up accepting Emma's treatment for so long. The legal protections that mean she can't just show up at my door anymore. The community of people who've proven that isolation doesn't have to be permanent. Mostly, I think about Thomas learning to walk in this same yard where my nightmare began, but in a space that's been reclaimed by safety and love and the kind of ordinary moments that used to feel impossible. Emma will always be his mother, and if she truly changes, really changes, not just learns better words to describe her actions, then maybe someday he can have a relationship with her that doesn't require protection from her. But right now, as I watch my grandson discover that he can stand on his own 2 feet, I'm learning that sometimes the greatest act of love is simply refusing to let fear make all your decisions. Sometimes breaking the cycle means finding the courage to say, no more, to people who taught you that your pain doesn't matter. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it means getting the chance to teach a child that love should feel safe, that family should feel like coming home, and that the people who care about you most should be the ones most committed to your well-being. As the sun sets behind the trees that line my backyard, Thomas takes his first independent step toward me, arms outstretched and face glowing with trust and joy. I catch him in my arms, hold him close, and whisper the promise I make to him every single day: you're safe, little man. You're loved, and you're safe, and that's never going to change. For the first time in longer than I can remember, I believe it's a promise I can keep.